Number 10. The SS Rio Grande. According to Guinness World Records, the SS Rio Grande has been identified as the deepest shipwreck in the world. The vessel is a World War II-era German blockade runner that sank in January of 1944 after running into Allied forces in the South Atlantic Ocean. It's situated at a depth of around 18,900 feet, which is over 3.5 miles beneath the surface, and it was discovered on November 28, 1996, thanks to side-scanning sonar technology. The company responsible for the find, Blue Water Recoveries, confirmed the wreck's location 2 days after using a remotely operated vehicle. The SS Rio Grande now rests at the bottom of the ocean, 5 miles from the coast of Brazil. Types of blockade runners were once used to transport cargo, and when this one sank, it was carrying 2,370 tons of copper, 500 tons of tin, and 311 tons of cobalt. The vessel also carried a precious cargo of rubber, most of which washed up on several beaches along the Brazilian coast 74 years later. Number 9. Anomaly on the seafloor. In 2022, scientists spotted something unusual at more than 8,000 feet beneath the Atlantic Ocean. What they found was a bizarre line of nearly perfect spaced holes on the seafloor. According to the U.S. National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, the origin of the holes has researchers completely stumped, even after exploring the area with a remote-operated vehicle. The expertly aligned holes look like they could have been created from human activity. However, zoologist Mike Vecchione with the National Museum of Natural History isn't convinced that the pattern is man-made. He worked on and watched the dive that discovered the odd holes and later told Mashable that there's no way that they were created by humans. Vecchione instead has 2 theories of his own as to what could have created the sets of holes. He believes that either a marine animal burrowed through the seafloor horizontally, occasionally pushing up holes to get oxygenated water for ventilation, or that a creature swam above the surface of the sea sediment and stopped every once in a while to poke something into the sandy floor. In 2004, similar holes were discovered by Vecchione and Odd Axel Bergstad, a marine researcher, during a dive they completed together to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. However, nobody has invested their time and money to investigate why these holes form. During the more recent expedition in 2022, scientists collected water samples from the mysterious holes to see if they couldn't detect environmental DNA, which is basically genetic material that an organism leaves behind in their environment. Researchers have yet to analyze the water samples, but once they do, they'll be able to identify what animals live in the vicinity and possibly solve who created the holes in the first place. Number 8. Siphonophores. Did you know that there's conjoined twins that live in our planet's oceans? They're called siphonophores. They belong to a family that's made up of around 180 species. They look like gelatinous strings and can grow up to 100 feet long, making them one of the longest creatures in the world. However, instead of growing as a single organism like most other animals, siphonophores have the ability to clone themselves. They can do this thousands of times, resulting in a half-dozen different kinds of specialized cloned bodies that all cling together and work as a team, an extremely deadly team at that. These creatures are made up of hundreds of tentacles that contain powerful neurotoxins that can take down even the most admirable foes. These incredible animals inhabit the deep oceans at depths of around 2,000 feet, but they've been found by ocean explorers existing as deep as 6,600 feet. One of these siphonophores was spotted in 2020 off the coast of Western Australia. According to Nerida Wilson of the Western Australian Museum, you couldn't miss it, and it was absolutely huge. It was suspended in a giant spiral, and the team believed it to be a new species, one that resembled a tangled feather boa. The spiral arrangement is apparently a feeding posture for these types of siphonophores. When they feed, they envelop their prey before digesting them, and afterward, the meal is dispersed throughout the colony through its stem like a giant straw that reaches every single clone. Number 7. Ancient deep-sea turtle. In 2016, a hiker in the Pyrenees Mountains of northern Spain stumbled upon the remains of a giant marine turtle. The specimen was a previously unknown species, and now it's the biggest sea turtle that's ever been found in present-day Europe. The species was named Leviathanocales enigmatica, after the word Leviathan, which is a term for sea monster that's typically seen in the Bible. They can reach lengths of more than 10 feet from head to tail, but until recently, they were only thought to inhabit the waters surrounding North America. The animal's unusual presence in this region of the prehistoric world proves that giant turtles were a lot more common than previously thought. These turtles had the ability to hold their breath much longer than their modern-day counterparts in order to reach depths in the ocean so they could find food or escape larger predators. It's not known for certain exactly how deep they could go, but the leatherback turtle that exists today can dive over 3,000 feet, which means that this turtle likely reached depths of 4,000 feet or more. The research team that examined the turtle's remains from Spain's Autonomous University of Barcelona's Miquel Crucifont Catalan Institute of Paleontology believes the ancient animal lived throughout the Campanian age of the late Cretaceous epoch, which would make it around 72 million years old. In the near future, researchers hope to revisit the fossil site where the turtle remains were initially found to look for more bones, as they aren't certain that all the fragments from this specimen have been located. Number 6. The USS Hornet. Researchers have located the USS Hornet's final resting place deep in the South Pacific Ocean. Back in October of 1942, the aircraft carrier that served in the Second World War was sunk during the Battle of Santa Cruz Island that was fought against the Japanese Navy. When the Hornet capsized, its 2,000 crew members were forced to abandon ship, resulting in 111 deaths. Overhead sonar images that were taken shows the carrier sitting eerily upright and almost perfectly intact on the desolate and dark ocean floor. The USS Hornet was discovered in late January of 2019 by the research vessel called RV Petrel at nearly 17,500 feet in the waters around the Solomon Islands. The aircraft carrier shows little sign of buildup from ocean life or deterioration because of the depth of where it's located, and photos of the wreck are creepy to say the least. One image in particular shows an aircraft tug, still fitted with its black rubber tires, gripping the Hornet's deck where it would have moved aircraft into the right positions. A sign that reads International Harvester, the tug's maker, is still clearly visible on top of its engine. The anti-aircraft weapons that were once used to fend off the fierce bombardment from Japanese aircraft are also visible on the sea floor. Number 5. A 100-million-year-old fossil. A study from 2014 revealed that the deep sea could be the origin of many lineages of marine creatures found closer to the surface, like several species of sea stars, snails, and urchins. These recent findings suggest that the deep sea played a much greater role in preserving and producing diversity in sea life than previously thought. For a long time, the deep sea was believed to be a lifeless desert where no animal could survive. But in the last few decades, it's been revealed that it supports some of the highest levels of biodiversity on the planet. With help from Gero Moosleitner, an amateur paleontologist, scientists discovered 100-million-year-old deep-sea animal fossils in the Austrian Alps. These specimens have since shed light on the shocking history of deep-sea life. A landslide that occurred near the city of Salzburg in Glassenbach Gorge exposed the fossils. Then, over the next decade, the fossils were collected by Moosleitner, who informed his colleagues of the treasure trove he'd found. Around 2,500 fossils were recovered from this site, including the oldest known members of some groups of deep-sea creatures that still exist today. These fossils were analyzed by Moosleitner and his paleontologist colleagues and were found to predate earlier findings by over 25 million years, suggesting that shallow water animals may have evolved from deep-sea ancestors. Number 4. Urethaneous plasticus. The presence of plastic has been uncovered in a previously unknown deep-sea amphipod, which was first discovered in the Mariana Trench, the world's deepest underwater gorge. The new species was named Urethaneous plasticus because of the plastic it's digested. And according to Dr. Alan Jamieson, marine ecology lecturer for Newcastle University, the name was also chosen to highlight the fact that immediate action needs to be taken in order to stop the deluge of plastic into our planet's oceans. Jamieson, who also happens to be the head of the research mission, noted that we're at a point now where newly discovered species from unexplored habitats are already being found contaminated with plastic. Urethaneous plasticus lives at over 19,600 feet below sea level, a depth that's hardly been explored, and yet it's already ingested the pollutant. According to Oceanographic magazine, an estimated 8 million metric tons of plastic enters our oceans every single year. To put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of an entire truckload of plastic every minute of every day. Once in the water, the pollutant breaks down into microplastics, which then spreads throughout the rest of the ocean, where it's subsequently ingested by marine life. Luckily though, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, or WWF in Germany, has launched a petition that's already been signed by over 1.6 million people across the globe. They're encouraging people to call on their local governments to commit to reduce plastic waste internationally and to improve waste management as a whole. Hopefully, in the future, we'll live in a world that's not plagued by microplastics. Number 3. Ice finger of death. Brinicles are hardly observed in real time, although they've been known to exist since the 1960s. Brinicles are finger-like formations that grow underneath sea ice, resulting in a formation that's often called an ice finger of death. Typically, this phenomenon only occurs in specific conditions, like those that are found in the polar regions of the globe, beneath giant blocks of floating sea ice. Ice on the surface of the ocean is composed of two elements, unlike frozen fresh water. The ice crystal is relatively pure, since during the freezing process, the water exudes most of the salt. The salty water that remains subsequently stays liquid thanks to its lowered freezing temperature, and because of this, highly saline brine channels are created within the porous ice block. A brinicle then forms when the sea ice cracks, allowing the saline water to leak out into the open oceans. And since the brine is heavier than the surrounding water, it sinks to the seafloor while continuing to freeze the relatively fresh water that comes into contact with it. This process allows the brinicle, or ice finger of death, to grow downward, sometimes catching bottom-dwelling creatures around it like starfish and sea urchins. Number 2. Pelican eel. The pelican eel has a large, scoop-like jaw and typically doesn't grow bigger than about 3 feet in length. These marine creatures inhabit the oceans at depths of 1,600 to 9,800 feet, and unlike their Twilight Zone buddies, they remain in the deep ocean while their counterparts migrate to the surface to find dinner. The pelican eel is sometimes referred to as the umbrella mouth gulper, since it seems to be the most appropriate out of all of its nicknames. These animals have the ability to expand their stomach and throat in order to accommodate food, as well as the copious amounts of water it slowly expels through its gills. When the eel encounters prey, it blows up its mouth to insane dimensions, creating a huge net that can scoop up a swarm of shrimp or a squid with relative ease. Its balloon-like capabilities is a beneficial adaptation for an opportunistic eater, since the small teeth that line the eel's jaw would hardly do the trick alone. Despite the frightening size of its mouth, the pelican eel isn't a particularly strong hunter. Its eyes are extremely small compared to other deep-sea creatures, so it can't solely rely on its sight to locate prey. Instead, it uses a pink or red light on its rear fins to lure in its next meal. The pelican eel also isn't much of a swimmer, due to its whip-like tail and its lack of pelvic fins, scales, and swim bladders, so it just drifts around in the deep ocean, tempting prey with its bioluminescent lights. And at number 1, discovery at 10,000 feet. In 2019, an elephant tusk was discovered sitting at a depth of over 10,000 feet, submerged beneath an underwater mountain called a seamount. It was located roughly 150 miles off the coast of California by researchers with the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. The tusk was found by a team using a remotely operated underwater vehicle. After a delicate operation, the researchers managed to bring the artifact back up to the surface 2 years later, which was when it was confirmed to be a real mammoth tusk from the lower Paleolithic era of the planet's Pleistocene period. It measured 3 feet in length and was believed to come from a Columbian mammoth, an ancient hybrid between a steppe mammoth and a woolly mammoth. Further analysis on the tusk revealed that it was at least 100,000 years old, and according to researchers, it belonged to a young female that passed away on the coast and was carried far out to sea by the ocean currents. The fossil has since been scheduled to undergo a CT scan, which will hopefully reveal more information about the mammoth and where it came from. But at the moment, it's unclear what the tests revealed. Would you rather discover fossil evidence of a mermaid-like humanoid creature that went extinct a long time ago, or find a machine deep in the ocean that proves that there were advanced civilizations before ours? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.